And the desserts are wonderful, you guys hold it together.
So I'm Dave Teich, of course most of you know me, and my friend Susan Matson agreed to do a presentation on birds, and I know Susan's, I know her work on Facebook, her photography is spectacular, and you wouldn't believe how many birds are in this area. It's like a jungle out there. I see the pictures that are taken. I never knew these birds were here. So I'm going to let Susan do the bulk of the presentation, and I'm going to talk a little bit about bird houses and bird feeders. And
Show her the birdhouse you made with the logo.
oh, with the okay. That's your classic, sort of a bluebird house, and it's got the Green Team logo on there. We have lots of, Green Team decals. If you print something on a laser printer, it doesn't work on an inkjet. You print it on a laser printer. You print it in reverse so that it's backwards. Put it down on something and put a hot iron on it. You will have
You have to
impression.
use specialized paper?
Nope.
Oh.
It's better to use something smoother than really rough hewn cedar. It comes out perfect when you do it the right way. And so that's there. That's and the free decals. Plus we have a few kits to give away. And if it works out, I'm going to do show you just how quickly I can put together a birdhouse. And if it doesn't go quickly, I'll say, well.
And you have a few upcycle things there, or at least one.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the like the 10-minute birdhouse. It takes 10 minutes to put together. It will last about 10 minutes outside.
Now, is it a birdhouse or a bird?
I'm sorry. Well, it's a bird feeder. It's a bird feeder, unless they decide to make it a house. Okay.
Are the squirrels specific that they'll have?
The squirrels, yeah. This will come down, and what the heck,
You'll have a few minutes of fun.
A few minutes watching the squirrels tear it up. I have lots of squirrel stories, but for another time. Anyway, I'll let
Thanks.
Susan pick it up. Thank you.
Well, as Dave said, my name is Susan Matson, and I'm very much an amateur bird watcher and bird listener. As we become more mature, I'm speaking only for myself. My eyesight is not what it used to be, so I do a lot of listening as well, and that helps me identify a lot of birds. But to begin, I thought it would be fun to keep this small and informal. It's a small group, so can we just introduce ourselves and say what your particular interest is in this presentation? So can we start
Okay,
recording?
Beth Patel. I live on Lake Drive.
What is your first name?
Beth.
Beth Patel?
Hmm?
Okay, very good.
And I've been watching the birds and and that was a question I had, and this might not be the appropriate time, but since
It's
my
very
mouth is
informal,
going.
so we welcome all questions.
I've heard and read that because of the bird flu, you're not supposed to put out seed for the birds. What's the current thought on that?
It seems that it's abated, so I haven't heard of any recent cases.
Okay.
The real concern seemed to have been that birds were contracting the disease because feeders were not being cleaned.
Okay.
And people forget that you do have to clean them or the bacteria starts growing and they start transmitting.
And the water dish.
And the water dish, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
A big issue is hummingbird feeders because people just will wait until the liquid evaporates, but it could start accumulating bacteria before then.
Thanks.
So you need to look at the frequency with which you change things.
Ellen Silverman, and I hear more birds than I see because they're very secretive.
Yes. And I used to be very frustrated, and then I found the Merlin app. I will tell you about that in a moment. It's magic. It's magic. It solves a lot of that problem, and it helps me, like, was that a whatever? Yes, it was. And then you go out in the future and you don't need the app, so it teaches you more on that in a moment.
Ann Willis. I'm not an avid bird watcher, but my parents had a bird feeder outside of our picture window when I was a small child with a field guide beside it, and we kept a log of what we saw. And I'd kind of like to do that again. You know, when I first came to Roosevelt, I didn't hear any birds. I thought, this is weird. You know, there've got to be birds here. You know, there are 4,000 acres of trees, there've got to be birds. Till I opened the window.
Ah,
And then I could hear the birds.
and they are always there, and the great thing about bird watching is that 12 months out of the year, you're going to see something. You just have to know where to go, where they might be, et cetera, et cetera. And in back,
I'm Michael Merritt. We're here just a year now on Rochdale, and always have a feeder out. I understand the platform feeders are particularly bad because the birds defecate on them and then they share all kinds of
it
stuff.
gets very dirty. et
Yeah,
cetera.
so I avoid that. But I also know I have heard and not yet seen a pileated woodpecker.
Ooh.
It has a lovely maniacal
They're up
laugh. So I know it's around,
Yeah.
and those are lovely birds.
The pileated needs a huge amount of acreage and very old, high-growth trees, so therefore you don't see it very often. But I have heard it in Assunpink at the eastern end of the lake,
Mhm.
and you go, who's that maniac laughing in the trees?
Sounds
And
like
you know,
Jackass.
and the app will tell you it's a pileated.
Yeah.
And I say that because some people confuse it with the red-bellied woodpecker. I'm sorry, the yellow-shafted flicker. They both have this descending laugh,
Oh,
but the pileated is really loud and
Yeah.
very distinct.
We've had some in town on dead trees, you know, like
Okay,
they come in for a snack.
right. So look for those huge holes in the trees. It's probably a pileated.
Hillary Wilder, Michael's wife. I always worry when summer comes and he has the bird feeders out because where we used to live, that meant bears were going to be in our yard. But I haven't heard anything about bears in Roosevelt. But I did just see on the Millstone Facebook page, someone had a great shot of a juvenile bald eagle, which was like, I guess, around her. No, she gave the name of the road. I forgot what it was.
Great.
Wasn't there supposed to be a nesting pair in Assunpink?
I haven't heard, but about a month ago, I saw an adult flying over the
Yeah.
lake, so I wouldn't be surprised. Wonderful, okay. I'll talk a little more about Assunpink in a minute.
Oh, and there's been,
There's been,
he has to introduce
oh,
himself
Ben,
and talk about
you're
it.
invisible because you're the cameraman, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Ben Johnson, resident, and I used to be seriously interested in bird watching, but that was like eons ago, you know, probably 30, 40 years ago.
Did you photograph him, Ben, or?
No, it was basically just viewing. I took like my older.
And did a list and stuff?
No, nothing that formal. It was just kind of casual.
Good, we can always pick it up again. Okay, it happens that this particular PowerPoint has, I did type in notes at the bottom, and the way I'm looking at it, at least from my side, it looks like it's 7-point type, so I'm not going to attempt to read it, I'm going to try to just remember it. And anyway, tonight's presentation is very informal, anyway. So, loving the birds of Roosevelt in your backyard and more. So, a lot of you have bird feeders or else space in your backyards, but I'm thinking of the larger context, and I'll also touch on Assunpink because you live in one of the best places in central New Jersey to see birds, close to Assunpink, and I've been there many times. So, let's see, let me do the slideshow.
You have advanced.
Ooh, oh, I've messed up here. Hold on a moment. Okay. Can everyone see the slide? What do we mean by loving? Okay, so the title of the presentation is Loving Birds, and by that I mean knowing more about them, and I'll talk about the most common birds you've probably seen. Appreciating them. I'll throw you through a few facts out there and feel free to add your own. And supporting, and that's one of the reasons that Dave is here to talk about things like feeders, birdhouses, and other ways that you can augment nature a little bit, because we are losing birds, as many of you know. According to one estimate, in the past 40 years, we have lost 3 billion, with a B, 3 billion birds due to habitat encroachment and climate change. And most of them have been the smaller perching birds. So we need to do what we can as part of preserving their environment and the health of the greater environment as well. So,
I'm sorry,
yeah, go ahead.
when perching birds are the, I haven't heard of that category.
We generally think of raptors, so birds that you will see flying, and those would be the eagles and the vultures, the hawks. Then perching birds could be anything from sparrows, cardinals, etc. And then there'd be the shorebirds, great blue
Okay.
herons, etc.
Okay,
And then water birds like ducks, etc. So basically those 4 basic groups are what you're going to be.
all right.
And if I can butt in too,
Yes.
since I'm really new to this, but this is the best book I found, the Audubon Society bird book. The way they categorize it, perching birds, duck-like birds, that kind of thing. So just if you want to take a look at this, this is...
And it's useful because often you'll see a bird and you go, what is that? And they think, I'm overwhelmed, there's thousands of birds, how do I even start? So where did you see it? Oh, I saw it in the lake. Okay, I will go to the ducks. And so knowing how to group them will be very helpful. Okay. Now, which yard birds can you name? And do you know their songs? So does anyone know which bird this is? It's a sparrow. Which one?
House sparrow.
House sparrow. Okay. So I live in Hightstown, and you're practically tripping over house sparrows at every turn. You can find them anywhere. They're very adaptable. They are actually an import from England, and some people consider them quite a pest. But one of the reasons I like them is that there are about a dozen sparrows you can learn, and people will bang their head against the wall. How do you tell one from the other? Well, the house sparrow is very easy. It's got this, what we call a black bib right here, and you can see that in the picture. So there you have the house sparrow with the distinctive chirp, and it'll be landing on your porch, it'll be landing on your head, it'll be jumping into your birdhouse, and I'm starting with that. Now, I'm listing these. This is just a handful, but just to see if you know all of these, and these are the ones you can see year-round. So, starting from the left and going down, let's see if you know them. So we've already named the first bird, which is the house sparrow, and then going down, what bird is that? Also very, very common.
I would guess another sparrow, but...
It's another sparrow. And this is called the song sparrow. And you can tell it because it's got a dark blotch right here on its chest, and it's very streaky. And one of the reasons we love it, other than the fact that you can always find it, is you know it's spring when it starts its spring song. And it's 3 notes and then a trail of other notes. Dee, 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 blah. And so you can very easily identify it. Very cheerful, easy to photograph because it often perches at the top of a stalk as though it's just for that reason. Okay, below it is a bird that's not a sparrow, but it is streaky like a sparrow, but what stands out is that the head and upper breast is red. Do you know what it is?
Finch?
Yes. Which finch?
Which house finch?
House finch. It looks like a sparrow, but all the finches have heavy conical beaks so that they can eat
Nuts.
seeds. Seeds. Whereas the other ones will eat just about anything, seeds, worms, etc. But finches are adapted specifically for the seeds, and they do very well in the winter. and some of the males can look quite beautiful. Second row,
Tufted titmouse.
I grouped 3 birds together that all have a crest. So we've got the tufted titmouse, and you'll hear it calling beep, 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 usually 3 times, with the button eyes, and they will come to your feeder. They're pretty brash, they're not too timid. And below that, cardinal, female cardinal. For some reason, female cardinal is very shy, and the male not so much, so you don't see the female so often. But people often say it's the one with the lipstick, so it's got the bright red bill.
They come to our feeders in pairs.
Yes.
Lately, they've been, they go to the feeder and then they feed each other. It's very romantic.
During mating season, and I've tried so hard to get a photo of this, and I've seen a photo, the male, as part of the courtship, will feed the female. It's very sweet. And then there's the famous rascal in blue, the
Blue jay.
blue jay.
They come in gangs.
And they come in gangs, and I always say blue jays serve 2 purposes. Number 1, they'll scream, and you know that there's a blue jay and you have to put out the peanuts or whatever. Second thing is, when a bunch of them are screaming, they're probably chasing a hawk.
Yeah, they call
Mobbing a hawk.
anything.
They're mobbing a hawk, and that is something to see. And they can drive off.
Yeah, hawks don't want to deal with them.
Hawks don't want to deal with them. The other thing is that hawks have limited mobility. They are not nearly as adapted for flying through small branches as jays are, so they don't want to waste the energy of trying to chase after the blue jays, and after a while they'll just go away. So with a lot of screaming of jays, look up, maybe there's an owl, maybe there's a hawk, could be something interesting. Be careful, jays are awfully good at imitating a red-tailed hawk. And you may be looking around for a hawk. I had one outside my door. There's a hawk right outside my door. No, it's a jay. Why do they do that? So that people will come running and then it can go get the food. They're smart. Okay, here's the famous what? Number 3?
Morning dove.
Morning dove. They are everywhere. I mean, apparently they can multiply in any corner. So there it is. Beautiful cooing song. Below that is the Carolina wren. The song people often associate with it, the mnemonic is tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, and variations thereof. And you will hear them do duets. What do I mean by that? Well, the male will sing tea kettle, tea kettle, tea kettle, and the female will do a slightly different song, and it'll come together in a nice duet. So
They do a round.
they do, it's like a round. It's rather amazing. They will also scold anybody who comes close. And of course, any wren will have that upturned tail, perky little upturned tail. And Carolina wren is the most common of our wrens. Below we have the robin, or the American robin, because there's a European version. And I really enjoy robins because you can have an enormous variation. You've probably seen very pale robins, very dark orange robins. And just this week, well, on one particular trip up north this week, I saw 2 robins building nests right in front of me with mud. They were in a small spruce tree, and they just took mud on their bill, and they were just packing mud around the branches. So very simple. It's amazing what birds are capable of with no bank account, no map, just instinct. The 4th column is
Crow.
the crow. Now here's the challenge. There's more than one type of crow. Anyone know? What you're probably going to see around here is the American crow, but there's also something called a fish crow, which is slightly bigger and has a different call. So listen when you see a big black bird flying over. If it's caw, caw, probably the American crow.
Are the fish crow around here?
And yes, and the birders joke, I know, corny joke, but what birders say is, you ask the crow, are you an American crow? And it goes, nyah-uh, nyah-uh, nyah-uh. So listen when it's flying over for nyah-uh, nyah-uh. That's the fish crow.
How about ravens? I know they're bigger, but when you only see one, it's hard to judge.
I used to confuse ravens, and now I realize the trick is you have to see them from the side. If you see them from the side, they've got this huge honking bill
Mhm.
that's longer than its head,
Mhm.
and a ruff coming out of its neck. And yes, it's a third again bigger than
Right.
a crow. And the other day I was in Cranberry, and something flew right across my field of vision in front of the car, and it come to a screeching halt. Fortunately, nobody's around. I need one of those bumper stickers, beware, birders driving. So I stopped. Thought, that's almost as big as a vulture.
Yeah.
But it's not a vulture. And I looked, and it had seen a mouse in the grass, flew right in front of me, dropped down and grabbed the mouse, and the bill was just really remarkable. There's nothing like it. So you will know when you've seen it. So this was Cranberry, and you don't see ravens very often. We have a pair that's nesting on a water tower in Hightstown. But, and if you hear them, it's so loud and raspy, you know it can't be anything else. Okay, below the crow, we have anybody? A nuthatch. What kind of nuthatch?
Upside down.
An upside down one. And I love them with that needle nose, right?
Yeah.
Very
Upturned,
thin
yeah.
bill. There's actually two types of nuthatches. And 95% of the time you're going to see this white-breasted nuthatch. The reason they're called nuthatches is, it's an old English word, but the idea is that they store nuts or seeds under the bark of the tree. So it's kind of a strange category. It's not exactly a woodpecker, it's not exactly a perching bird. And I have them on a tree right outside my
Well,
door.
and that's a typical perch. I mean, we see them all the time clinging to the trunk of a tree, more often upside down than
Right,
to-
and they love to go down and up and down and
Yeah.
up. And their call is rather distinctive. It's a kind of call. There's also a red-breasted nuthatch, which only comes around about once every 4 or 5 years. It's got a rusty breast, otherwise it looks exactly the same. Here's another character below the nuthatch. What
a
is it?
mockingbird? It's hard to say.
Yes, northern mockingbird. And they have fooled me more than once. And I learned a few years ago that the older a mockingbird is, the more songs it has. And we were starting on a field trip with New Jersey Audubon, and the leader just wanted to just stay and listen. We thought, what is he doing? Well, he was counting. I'm hearing cardinal, golden. Okay. He said, this bird has got to be at least 8 years old, because it knew over 100 songs. Every season it picks up more songs. It's quite amazing. Because the more songs it learns, the more ladies it attracts. It makes it a more attractive mate for the ladies.
My first apartment, the mockingbirds all knew the noise of the playground equipment made. You'd hear playground equipment all around the neighborhood.
I worked at a nursery in Ocean County Park for the Master Gardeners, and there was one that had picked up the most popular ringtone of a phone. So he would sing and everybody would reach for their phone.
They're just amazing. Although, before I would ascribe too much actual intelligence in the sense of human intelligence to a mockingbird. I was up at Sandy Hook, and I was out birding, and I came back to my car, and I thought, what is attacking my car? And I got to my car, and something was attacking the mirror on my car. Well, it was a sunny day, and of course, he thought he had a rival. So he was attacking himself, and I thought he was going to destroy my mirror.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard other people have similar
Yes,
stories.
yeah. My wife once told me at work, said, there's a turkey knocking on the door. Because it was a glass door,
Okay,
and it was just, you know,
it doesn't know any better, right?
Well, and the trouble is they just keep doing it. I mean, he would stop if that one would stop.
yeah, right.
That's so funny. Now, here's a challenge for you. The last column, you may or may not recognize what this is because it's the female of a well-known species.
Is it a starling?
No?
No idea.
Okay, you can see it's kind of stripy and spotted, gray and black, and a tiny little bit of yellow on the head. I'm doing this deliberately because if I showed you the male, you'd all know it in a nanosecond.
Goldfinch, female,
No.
no, out of season.
Here's a hint.
I could guess.
Her partner has very special wings that have bright red on them. Red and yellow. And black.
Red-winged blackbird.
Yes. So this is the female red-winged blackbird. And it looks nothing like the male. And when I first started birding more seriously, maybe 4 years ago, I thought, what the heck is that? And I took a picture and I circulated it. There's a site on Facebook called What's This Bird? And you just send them the photo, and somebody somewhere, like within seconds, will come back to you and go, that's a da-da-da. So I sent the photo and I said, I can't figure out what this is, but it was hanging around a red-winged blackbird. And somebody wrote back and said, what does that tell you? Oh, okay, it's the female. So it looks very different. Okay, and then below it there is a goldfinch, the American goldfinch. Out west there's a different version. And there's something like 7 different states who have this for their state bird, including New Jersey. So goldfinch is one of them. And I was happy to see this week they're back in their full, beautiful, brilliant yellow colors. A lot of people don't know they're actually all year round. They're year-rounders, but their bright color doesn't come back until April. And the male is brighter than the female. Okay, and then below, what is this? Another
Chickadee.
little bit of a trick question. What is it?
Chickadee? Black
It's a
chickadee?
chickadee. Which one?
Black cap?
So we live in an interesting area. I read an entire article about this. Central New Jersey is the dividing line between where black-capped chickadees kind of run out and the Carolina chickadees begin. And you're unlikely, and certainly I'm definitely unlikely, to tell the difference just by looking. They're very similar. Carolina is a little bit smaller. The calls are definitely different. So I used to submit reports and I say, yes, this is a black-capped. It's amazing. They're not supposed to be south of the Millstone River. And somebody would come back to me and go, could be black-cap. Could be Carolina that learned a black-cap call. Could be a hybrid. So I've given up on it. But basically, whatever you're seeing here in Roosevelt or at Assunpink is probably going to be at Carolina. And I love watching them, and in the fall, they will be on the sweet gum briars, you know, that are hanging down from the trees, and they will peck and eat those
They
in
can take
big
them
groups.
all.
What's that?
They can take them all.
They can take them all like half a day. Woo, how did that happen? Yeah. And they have a lot of fun socializing. It's just a lot of fun to watch. So all of these birds you can find year-round, whether or not you have a feeder. Seasonals. Dave was asking me about juncos, and the juncos are starting to leave, but I'm still seeing them. So these are pretty little birds with the gray head and upper chest, and the bill is actually pink. And you can find them foraging on the ground. Has anyone seen any juncos recently? Yeah.
Not here.
And then below, I'm not sure if you know the name of this one. Any guesses? It's a sparrow. It's got a little bit of yellow in front of its eye and white here. White-throated sparrow. And if you get a close-up, it's very handsome. It's very pretty. And it has this very distinctive white spot. And the reason people like them so much is that their call is, "Oh, Sam, Peabody, Peabody, Peabody." So listen for that and you will get to know it. If you're from Canada, you will say, "Oh, it's, oh, sweet Canada, Canada, Canada." So that's the Canadian version. So these guys are leaving, but you'll still see them. And coming in are 4 birds. On the left is a bird that sounds like an insect. It's a chipping sparrow. And it's got a red cap and a little bit of a black line through its eye. And whenever I hear what sounds like a bunch of insects in the tree, I know that the chipping sparrows have come back, and they come back in early April. So listen for them. You probably are not even aware it's a bird.
Maria, did you say chirping?
Chipping.
Chipping.
Yeah,
Chipping.
it's a very fast chip.
Okay.
And then to the right is a bird that looks very similar, so it's a little confusing. But this is called the field sparrow, and it's got a little white ring around its eye. Field sparrow, and it has a little descending call. To the left on the bottom is a swallow. Any guesses?
Purple martin.
No, but the purple martins have come back, and some people have purple martin houses. Looks a little bit similar to a martin, but this is a
Horned swallow.
tree swallow. A tree swallow. And the tree swallows are the first to come back. Tree swallows are most of what we will see around here. There are 2 other swallows you might see.
Is that blue on its back?
Is that what?
Blue.
Yes, I was trying to ID some swallows today and frustrated because I couldn't see their backs,
Yeah.
because 2 swallows will be white in the front, so you really have to see their back. Tree swallow is mostly kind of a steel blue with a little bit of brownish on the edges.
Almost iridescent.
Almost iridescent. And if you can see them on a bird box with the sun shining on them, oh, it's just really gorgeous. It's really pretty. Last one on the right, any guesses? Eastern phoebe. The eastern phoebes are coming back. It's a little bird, pretty little bird. They like to build nests under eaves and under picnic canopies, and you will see them catching insects over brooks and over rivers. It's a lot of fun to watch them. I've gotten great photos of a little phoebe with huge dragonfly in their neck, so they're very good at snagging the bugs. Okay, I love woodpeckers because they're so easy to ID compared to all these other birds. The one you're most likely to see is kind of in the middle here at the top. Any guesses?
Downy.
Well, it's in the middle. Sort of the one that has the red head.
Oh,
Oh,
There's
red,
some stuff
red belly.
That's the red-bellied, which is kind of a misnomer because the belly doesn't look particularly red. It just has a little bit of a red wash. But that is the red-bellied, and that's the one who will go up to your house and drill holes.
You can't see, not as much as the downies,
All of them can damage your house,
so we can
unfortunately.
hardly see the red on its head.
No. All of them can have some red on their heads. That's why,
The females.
you know, they struggled to come up with names to distinguish them, so they just arbitrarily named this the red belly. The male does have a bright red cap, and you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it downtown, Hightstown, etc. To the right of it, very distinctive looking bird. This is the female. The male has what people think of as a mustache right here. And the black collar. What is it? Flicker. Yellow shafted flicker. In the west, there's a red shafted version. And then the one that you'll see all over, this little guy here, the downy, the smallest one. Very common. And then to the right is a slightly bigger version,
Hairy.
the hairy, which is not as common. And having a suet feeder, like Dave was showing us, is very handy because you go, oh, it's bigger than one suet block. It must be a hairy. Also, the bill is bigger in proportion to its head. It's almost at the same length as its head. And to the right is a bird we just finished talking about, the pileated, with its magnificent laugh, trailing laugh.
Is that the one that's about this big?
Yes, it's the largest North American woodpecker. And it can destroy a tree. If you've ever seen it working like an entire morning, I
They're
mean,
like jackhammers.
like it's unbelievable. You think, how can it not have an enormous
Yeah.
headache?
Yeah, we've had some enormous ones. I mean, I know a few months ago we had one. I never saw a wingspan like that on a woodpecker.
It's incredible. Your
Yeah.
mouth just falls open. I
Yeah.
mean, it's huge. And it's rare for them to come to a bird feeder, but if you're in the forest and there's a fallen log or, you know, a rotting tree, that's where you might find it.
Yeah, we were lucky, just on a small road, there was a pileated going crazy on a dead tree right next to the road, and it ignored us in the car, so we just sat there and watched it tear this tree apart.
Oh, it's so much
A few
fun,
feet
right?
away, Yeah.
You're like, you just can't believe how much wood he's throwing out of that
Well,
tree.
the size of him, you know, we're just not used to that big a bird.
It's just jaw-dropping. Everybody loves the raptors, the birds that eat other birds and mammals.
The ones we're really feeding.
So the most common one is,
Red-tailed hawk.
red-tailed hawk. You know, I probably see one red-tailed hawk every other day. And that's the top and left. On the right is an uncommon one. It's actually threatened in New Jersey. It's called a red-shouldered hawk. It's very pretty. And the breast will be kind of a rusty red, and the wings rusty red. To the left and the bottom, any guesses?
Harris?
That is actually, the Harris is a western hawk. This is a Cooper's hawk. And if you look closely at its breast, it's got kind of a checkerboard of these speckles on its breast. On the right is a merlin, which is not very common, and it's darker and smaller. So on to appreciating, and this is just a few facts that I thought you might get a kick out of. But the more you go out there and try to learn about birds and look them up, the more interesting facts you'll learn. So, did you know bluebirds can hang around all year if you provide enough food, water, and shelter? And Dave will show you how to build a bluebird house. Goldfinches can raise as many as 4 different families in a single year. So, keep going out there. You'll see in September they're still feeding babies. And they're just incredibly determined. Cowbirds. You know about cowbirds?
Like cuckoos.
Cowbirds can lay eggs 10 times as fast as any other bird. That's how they survive. They have to run in, put eggs in another bird's nest, and run out before the bird is returned.
So they don't spend time making nests.
So they don't spend
They
time making nests. It's an evolution. That's how they've survived. And they're incredibly destructive to other species, and I've been hearing them everywhere. They have this kind of popping call. Kind of ugly birds, they're brown, drab brown. They threaten up to 100 other species, but what are you going to do? Turkey vultures don't kill. People freak out over vultures. Oh, my puppy. Well, no. Don't worry about turkey vultures. They won't take your puppy or your cat. But a black vulture could. Black vultures are not as common, but they are at Assunpink.
Yeah.
In warm weather, warblers, which are coming in now, can eat as many as 720 caterpillars per day. They love worms and caterpillars, which help ensure the health of native trees like oaks and maples. And you heard that there's a handout here on what to plant to help protect our birds. And those native species are what really provide the leaves that the caterpillars love. So rather than a Chinese elm, get something like an oak or maple. That's what they really like. Don't be frustrated by all the warblers. Don't start out by trying to take photos, or you will just feel like you're banging your head against the wall. They're very fast, they're very slow. But you may try to listen, and you might start identifying them. The most common is this yellow rump. Has everybody seen the yellow rump? You'll see maybe a little flash of yellow in the tree. That's all you're going to get. But they're pretty, and they come in groups. I mentioned the Merlin app. Do I have my phone?
Good mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have the app?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, this is free from Cornell Lab.
So all you have to do is go to your Apple store, download something called the Merlin app. And you can either take a picture of the bird and then download it to this app, but it's only about 80% good because it's only one quick look at the bird. But what I love is the sound ID. So show them, there's a microphone thing. You press the green button.
There's if you're hearing a bird, you press the button.
And it listens.
It listens, and you'll see the sound. Obviously, it's listening to me right now. It's not going to identify me as a bird because I've tried. It doesn't. I've tried chirping. It doesn't do it. And then Merlin has no matches. But it will match, and I have a number here that, let's see, this is, I don't know if it'll play. So that's what I recorded. So I just hold it up and record it. It says, oh, that's a Carolina wren. Okay, and then it gives you this intro. So it's really kind of a pretty cool app.
And then later at home, it automatically saves. Later you go, what did that bird sound like again? I want to remember it next time. And then you can play it.
Right.
Go,
right.
oh yeah, that's what the
You can
Carolina
play it
wren
back.
sounds like.
And then it'll sort of cross-reference, so it'll show you the duet, the female song, and all that kind of stuff.
Can you save them like you do your photographs? I mean, can
Well,
you go back?
you can save it indefinitely. And in fact,
Yes.
last year I thought, oh my God, I've had like a year's worth of recordings and this is taking up so much space on my phone. And there's no need for me to save all of this because it can record up to 8 different birds in the same listening segment. And sometimes they go on for 15 minutes. Well, that's a lot of space.
Right, but it will save it as a standard audio file, so that you could take it and,
It'll just be there and you look back and you go, oh, that's 15 minutes long. Whoa. And then if I remember, I'll just go through and delete. Because I'm really only using it temporarily to identify whatever it is that I heard at the moment.
It seems it has a WAV file, which is kind of an older audio format, but there's a lot of things you can
So
used to
that
convert.
might be because that's how the university set it up, Cornell?
Probably. But it's really easy to convert that.
You can actually send these files to people and
Yes.
say, this is what something sounded like.
This is in my backyard.
And it's free, and it's just amazing. And it has pretty good accuracy.
Yeah. Yeah, and Cornell has a, like I said, a school of, their whole area of focus there, so their website.
And it's still relatively new, it's maybe 2.5, 3 years old, so it's still being improved. And there's little glitches like, it'll pick up mockingbird imitating a red-tailed hawk, and it'll say it's a red-tailed hawk. You just have to kind of,
Because the mockingbird did a really
it was a
good
mocking,
job.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of think, is it really this? Where am I? What am I looking at? And you try to make the best guess you can. But you learn a lot through this, and it's fun. And finally, I love, 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 love Assen Pink. Not during hunting season,
Yeah.
which is November through February, generally speaking. Different periods for different weapons, right? You probably know it better than I do.
Yeah, I think the last grouping is in end of March.
End of March, okay. It's a period for crossbows, there's a period for,
Yeah, and different
Yeah.
species.
but even in
Deer.
the winter, no hunting on Sunday.
Yeah,
So you can always go on Sunday. So Assen Pink has many birds hard to find elsewhere in the state, like 12 species of duck. If you're frustrated identifying birds, just start with the ducks. They're easy to identify. I mean, everybody knows the mallard. The Assen Pink Lake is filled with ruddy ducks, and this is a spring version of a ruddy duck you can see. In the breeding season, it's got a blue bill. It's pretty cool. And this perky little tail. Lots and lots of other ducks. Assen Pink is famous for trumpeter swans, and most years, the only place you can find a trumpeter swan, which comes from the high Arctic, is Assen Pink Lake. I'm talking about the entire state of New Jersey.
Wow.
So that's what makes Assen Pink Lake so special. They typically come in November. There's a man named Bob Dodelson, and he will notify people on a special app that they're here, and people will come flooding and take photos. It's the same pair, and they usually leave around February or March. They're very famous. And then, does everyone know what I mean when I say the radio beacon field?
I know I
Yes, I
stumbled
did,
on it a couple of times
A lot of
when
people
I was
don't
walking, but
know it exists, but you know where the stables are?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's near the stables and near the headquarters of Assen Pink, and there's a little conservation house, and that's where people bring their horse trailers and park. But they don't do it very often. They might come on a Saturday or Sunday typically. But you go by yourself, and especially in the summertime, you've got all these beautiful, beautiful birds. Cuckoos. It's hard to find cuckoos. Indigo buntings. Here's a picture of a beautiful indigo bunting, and you'll find common yellowthroat. So the contrast of the blue and yellow, it's just gorgeous. And all the flowers, it's a great way to spend a spring morning. And there's an incredible bird called a white-eyed vireo, which you can only find in Assen Pink and a couple of other places. So get out there and enjoy it. Okay, support. So I mentioned the perching birds, they're in severe decline. What can you do? Please, I'm a cat lover, but don't, I beg of you, don't let your cat run free. They will prey on ground nesting birds. It's their instinct. So think about it. Cats are thought to be the #1 killer of baby birds, especially the perching birds. And we mentioned when you plant trees, try to choose native species. Those are the ones with caterpillars. Birds will come to your feeder any time of year. There's nothing wrong with keeping your feeder up all the time. And of course, this is a good time to get hummingbirds. Just remember to keep it clean. And the flip side of it is, you may get the beautiful birds, but you probably also get grackles, starlings.
Lots of them, lots of them.
And you can't tell some of the birds to go away and the others, you know, you get what you get. So just keep that in mind, and you'll probably be feeding cowbirds too. So most birds do just fine this time of year without any bird feeder. But they're likely to really appreciate the bird house, especially bluebirds, because bluebirds do not make their own nest. They need that extra protection of either a cavity in a tree, and those are becoming hard to find as the habitat is disappearing, or a human-made birdhouse.
Are the hummers back yet this year? I haven't
You
seen
know,
them.
I'm starting to see one or two reports down south, like Cape May.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've heard reports of Cape May, Pat Sutton.
Yeah, that seems to be the place to go, is
Yeah.
Cape May for everything, so. Love the hummingbirds. We really only get the ruby-throated hummingbirds here. Again, make sure to keep the feeders clean, and keep in mind some birds have difficulty finding the nesting cavities, so you can build bluebird or screech owl boxes, which is another project, but those are much bigger, and birds require certain dimensions of holes, or they will turn them down. So just think about what it is that you want to attract, and there will be instructions on YouTube, like there is, everything is on YouTube. Okay, so knowledge, appreciation, and support, love for birds, that's a love that keeps giving as you see them growing and thriving around you. And I also hope you can take enough time to stop and see what it is they're doing, and you learn a lot from their behaviors and enjoy what they're doing. They're amazing. Just the other day I saw somebody who had a wreath on their door, and they looked a little closer, and there was a Carolina wren nest with 4 eggs to welcome them every time they come home. There's the nest, and then your skull story.
Skull, yes. I'll show the skull video.
Okay, so death to life, you
Yes.
know, he had cattle skull, and that was used as a nest. Any other stories of special nests for birds? No?
I
Go ahead.
used to have an old swing set that I put plastic over, so it was a, cold frame. And I went in early May to take the hanging baskets out, and there was a bird nesting. And I would go in and grab the other plants. I left that hanging basket there, and I said, "Madam, I'm just here for the plants. I'm not after your children."
Yeah, and you were going to say?
Well, I was just, we had this a while ago now, but we used to have a cockatiel. And one morning over breakfast, the cockatiel just started going berserk. And I went to look out the window, and a sharp-shinned hawk had caught a flicker. But the hawk was, trying to, do in the flicker, and the flicker was objecting. But the hawk was also, spreading its wings and looking back overhead, and then all of a sudden, a red-tailed hawk came in, grabbed the flicker, turned and flew right at the window and then up, and then suddenly there were no birds in the backyard. And our
And the
cockatiel,
cockatiel says, "I've had enough.
That was
Close the curtains."
I think I'll
PTSD
stay
for that
inside
bird.
now, yes.
Yes,
What a drama.
it was an amazing 4-bird event, just
Oh, that is
just
amazing.
crazy.
That is amazing.
Yeah. I was sitting inside the house and I saw something out of the corner of my eye, and I looked in the yard and there was a hawk standing on a robin.
Standing on a robin.
Standing on a robin and pulling the feathers out.
Yeah,
It was-
plucking it.
It was plucking it, and I thought, I didn't think they were such fussy eaters. I thought,
It is surprising. I think it was last summer, I was driving out around Allentown, and there was like these feathers were jumping up out of the meadow. I go, what is that? A little fountain of feathers. I stopped, and sure enough, I think it was a pigeon, and the hawk was just going,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
You know, I don't like those feathers.
yeah, I don't blame them.
And it'll, you know, they can get through all the feathers in like a minute,
Yeah, yeah.
and then they're done. So, birds are quite amazing. Anyone else have a bird story? Experience?
There's more, they're learning more and more about, we talked earlier about crows and ravens, but there's some amazing experiments that you can see online, I'm sure they're on YouTube, about how they'll recognize people, they know, you know, they can recognize individual people over time.
There's a book, if you have time, I highly recommend it. It's called Heart of the Raven, and it's by a German scientist named Bert Heinrich. And he came to the U.S. and he was teaching at University of Maine. But he made his life work to study the raven, and he would go and climb tall trees in the dead of winter in Maine and get these eggs and raise these ravens. These birds can distinguish one person from another. Ravens can count. They know when a certain number of people have left the room and somebody else is remaining. So in other words, they're subtracting and adding. Think about
Wow.
that. They can communicate with each other, specific distances, specific food groups. They have alliances.
Yeah.
They have enemies. I mean, it's just fascinating social order that they can create.
I saw a webinar last week, and I forget which webinar. It was probably New York State. But anyway, the deal was this person was studying how I think it was the marble honeysuckle bush, which is Asian. The berries have a high keratin in them.
Okay.
So the birds that eat those berries in the fall have a change in their coloration. So they can basically tell where the bird has been by the population of the shrub. You know, in the forest,
Okay.
they know, you know, okay. Then, or they can also tell the population of the honeysuckle bush, the morel, because they'll find birds that their coloration is usually yellow has turned to pink to even a bright red.
Wow. Amazing.
So the whole study was on the phenology of when these plants have their berries, and apparently they're the only ones that form that amount of keratin changes. That's pretty interesting.
And I recommend getting the Audubon magazine and subscribing to Audubon because you will read studies like this. It's just fascinating, and you learn about the relationship of birds to specific plants and how birds disperse seeds and are so important for wild plant survival and a lot more. A little ad here, I was explaining that I'm cleaning out my house. I've got 4 perfectly good DVDs, if anyone has a machine that can still play these. These are completely unused and totally free. The Audubon Society's video guide to birds of North America. These are excellent, I'm told. I got these at a yard
Are
sale.
they DVDs or VHS tapes?
VHS, can anyone play VHS?
We could send one out and have it digitized.
Yeah.
Hey, all right, okay.
We'll look into
Now
that.
you're talking. So
We'll
this
look
is a
into that.
complete set,
Yeah.
and I will leave it in your care. How's that?
Okay, thank you very much.
Win-win.
That was wonderful.
Any other questions?
Thank you so much. It was lovely.
Yeah.
It was.
And some of you probably know as much as I do. it sounds
What
like.
are you looking forward to in the month of May, especially in terms of bird watching?
May is this embarrassment of riches, and what I mean by that is that's when all the warblers are here, and it's before all the leaves come out, so that it's impossible to see any of them. So I'm running around usually for about 4 weeks, trying desperately to get a better track record than I did the year before, because people are always saying, I saw this, I saw that, I saw this, and I'm like, I saw a flash of something. So the reason I got into bird photography is that I first just started out being satisfied with just seeing a bird and deciding what it was. And then I got to the point of, did I really see that? So I decided to take photos. And once I started taking photos, it's addictive. Like, let's get a better photo. Oh, let's get a pretty photo that I can show people. So then it escalates. So in May, my goal is to go out and get good pictures of warblers that I haven't gotten before. There's something like a black-throated blue, which is fairly common, and then there's a yellow-throated blue, and there's a dozen, and I'm lucky usually if I get maybe 3 of them. But I'm trying to get my home ready for sale, so I have to remind myself, sometimes there's things in life other than bird watching. So.
Really?
When the weather is nice, though, it's really hard to stay
Yeah.
outside. So I'm trying to split my time.
I'm far from a serious birder, but I do enjoy when I travel. It's nice to just try and see birds in a different environment that are, might be their house sparrow, but it's a different house sparrow.
Yeah, every time I go somewhere new, like I was saying, there's this Montclair Bird Club. Now, there are not many bird clubs in New Jersey. If you want to take a trip and learn from other people, New Jersey Audubon, just go to their website, New Jersey Audubon, and you can sign up, but you're going to have to pay $20, $25. But it's with experts, you learn a lot. Montclair has free trips, but you have to drive up north. My point here is that when I went on this trip, which was to a marsh, I saw all kinds of birds I'd never seen before. You can also go to Mercer County Park Commission, and they have free trips with a guide.
A couple of months ago, I want to go back now in the spring, but it was really nice. Do you remember the name?
No, but it was outside, it was right, very close to Trenton. I think
Oh,
it was part of the
yeah,
Mercer
the Trenton
County Park.
Marsh. And now
Yeah.
they call it Abbott Marshlands, but it used to be called the Trenton Marsh.
Yeah,
And
that looks like a great.
it's
park.
incredible what you can see down there. It's just
And it's
amazing.
pretty close.
And I will confess, I go down there by myself, and people say, "You single woman, you go down there by yourself in Trenton." I've never had any problem.
Well,
You might see a few people fishing. That's all
Yeah.
you're going to see down there. And you're going to see eagles. You're going to see hawks. You're going to see all kinds of ducks. You're going to see warblers. You're going to see herons. Amazing things. You're going to see beaver. Lots of beaver.
Just like
You're up here in the woods.
Like
Like
here,
here,
yeah,
just like right here.
yeah. You've got beaver.
Oh,
in your
yeah, we do,
backyard.
sure.
Yeah.
I think the most, I don't usually capture a lot of outdoor pictures because I'm usually gardening instead of, I don't have my camera with me. But there was a young fledgling bluebird that was in the blueberries, and he was like at the top, and they had the most grumpiest look. It's just,
Yeah, it's something about how their mouth comes down.
yeah, so he's there, and I got a picture of him sitting in the blueberry bush and giving me this look like, "You're not my mother."
And then, which brings me to another topic, and I'll finish because I don't want to be babbling all night, but people sometimes ask me, what do you do when a bird has fallen out of the nest? And what I learned a few years ago is that people often think that a baby bird will hatch, and then soon after that they learn how to fly, and then everything's cool. They go off and that's it. Actually, it's not true. Typically, a perching bird will sit on a nest for about 2 or 3 weeks, robin, etc. And then the babies will hatch, and then they'll be fed for 2 or 3 weeks. And then there's another 2 or 3 weeks where they will be in the bushes nearby, because learning how to fly is not easy, so they're kind of practicing. And they'll be in the bushes, you won't notice them. Sometimes you'll see them on the ground. And so sometimes you think they've fallen out of the nest, and they haven't. The parent bird is close by. And I've seen that occasionally, like at Pole Farm in Mercer County. So you just keep walking. And
They bring them
you know.
worms and stuff.
Yeah, they drop
Well,
worms
I
or
try to
whatever.
like just make sure that the neighbor's cats don't come into line.
Yeah, that's the problem
Because
with the cats.
I'm more concerned about if it's on the ground and can't fly very well, and
Yeah, and they do get eaten, yeah.
When we lived further north, close to us was the Great Swamp, and the Raptor Trust
Oh, that's
is an
amazing.
amazing place to visit
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
where they specialize in healing injured raptors and returning them to the wild. But
They
the
do
ones that are too
amazing
injured,
work.
they have in aviaries there, you can see and they use them as foster parents, and they will raise.
Yeah,
know,
and
pictures.
it's amazing. You can see great snowy owls, you can see incredible things up there. A couple friends have been sending me the same story of an eagle that was in a trust like that and was permanently injured, so they could never release it. And it was an adult male, and it was trying to hatch a rock. It was sitting on a nest with a white rock that it thought was an egg, and was getting very defensive at anybody that came close, chasing
just give
them
me
away.
more time, okay?
Give more time, more time. What's your hurry? Give me another week.
It's not like I'm going anywhere.
And finally, by some miracle, somebody brought in a fledgling eagle that had fallen out of a nest and needed
Sure.
a parent. So they brought it in and protected it at first so that the eagles could get used to each other, and then they finally released it, and then the adults started feeding it, and so
Great.
voila, foster
Just
parent.
switched out the egg.
Yes, now you will take the rock back.
Great.
Great, well, it's been fun.
Yes.
And now we
Okay.
have Mr. Fix-It here. He's
Well,
going to
yeah,
tell
maybe.
you about birdhouses.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. A couple weeks ago, I started doing research for this because I didn't really know bird. I mean, I know a little bit from, you live in Roosevelt, you look out the windows and you learn things. And I'll show my, let me just dial up my video
Sure.
while I'm doing the
Oh, you've got to see
intro.
this. This is great.
If I can find it, that is, there we go.
By the way, don't forget these goodies. They're amazing.
Yeah. So this was a horse skull that was on my front porch, and I noticed at some point that a bird was going in and out of it. So I mounted a GoPro camera above it, and it's going in and out of the point where the spine. So birds will make nests at you can hear, when it goes in, the babies go a little nuts. And you'll see it bringing food in, and it also takes out the feces, it takes out something. It's bringing something out. So this goes on and on. And this is about 15 hours long. And,
Only Dave would do this.
Well, he edited it
I
down.
edited it down to about 3 minutes. So you've already seen everything that happens for the next.
Super.
So the nice thing about, other than this very early in my teaching career, the nicest thing about teaching is you learn stuff. Like last month when I was doing recycling, I didn't know any of that stuff. So I didn't know a whole lot about this. I mean, we do keep we had a horse skull. I didn't keep it forever. And we do have hummingbird That's really nice, because we get dozens, I mean, during the summer, during the season, 6, 8, a dozen times a day, we get hummingbirds, and we have 2 feeders. You can't put them within sight of each other, because I don't know if you know this about hummingbirds, but
Very aggressive.
they're
Very
extremely aggressive.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's shocking, you think they're such sweet, pretty little birds, but no, they'll kill each other to keep each other. So what I'm going to show is just a couple of birdhouse things that I've learned. This, as I said, this is my 10-minute bird feeder, which it takes 10 minutes to make it. I haven't put it out there yet, but I bet it's going to last about 10 minutes. So it's going to be kind of fun to watch. I have a suet feeder, which again, you know, a lot of these things you just look up on the web and they'll tell you things. This is a really simple one, and it's made out of 2 pieces of what they call hardware cloth, which is just heavy metal screen. You cut a couple pieces 4 by 6 inches, and I'm using split rings, like for your keys, to hold it, to just put a hinge on one end, and a couple of rubber bands from the broccoli, and that just holds that together. I have a little wire as a hook to hang it, and then we've got this suit, which I've never handled before. So it smells like peanut butter, and this, they tell me, is very good at attracting woodpeckers. So it's basically just there. That's it. You put a rubber band
You
on
have to
that.
watch for the squirrels.
Well, that's what I hear
By
about
the
the
way, you can
squirrels.
buy suet that has pepper in it that deters squirrels.
Oh, okay.
And the birds
So,
still like it?
Except for
Except for very
culinary
determined
adventurous squirrels.
Haven't
Well,
met my
we
squirrels.
use
My
pepper.
squirrels
We use
like
pepper in the garden
everything.
to keep critters away. If you're not fussy about the quality of the pepper, you can get a gallon of cayenne from Amazon for about $2.
And it doesn't harm the birds?
And,
It doesn't harm the birds, it doesn't seem to bother them.
but something like a rabbit or something, which they go around, it'll keep them away. So
But they can't
that's-
be
Easy,
there
then you'll
anyway.
know
So-
you've got something going right.
So that's kind of an instant suet feeder. Now the big challenge tonight is I learned how to build one of these. Now this is a bluebird house, but it looks to me like a number of it's like the classic birdhouse. It also has the Roosevelt Green Team brand on it, which as I said, we have free brands
And
here.
it doesn't need a perch?
The instructions didn't show a perch. I would like to put a perch on it.
I have read that the reason why a lot of like Audubon and some others have suggested not having a perch on it, because it gives a handle
Oh,
for other
other,
animals that
That
are
want-
actually
that can
gonna go
reach in.
in there to get the,
Okay.
Super big.
okay.
they,
Well, this one does not have, I figure I
yeah.
can always put it in at some point. It's
Yeah.
just, I mean, that's just a 3/16 inch dowel,
That
about-
was what I've read.
Yeah.
So many times you'll see the more,
Right.
serious birdhouses will
Yes.
not have a perch, and that is the reasoning.
Right, well,
Yeah.
that's what I thought, go ahead. So that's the birdhouse. I hang these, I put like a keyhole in the back, so that you can slide a nail in there, and then it'll hang from that. That's how I like to hang them. Maybe I put 2. I didn't finish this. So I have one that I'm going to put together. Hopefully, my idea is to show how quickly and easily this can go together. So,
What could
but I will-
possibly go wrong?
Exactly. That's a question I never ask. Ann will tell you. She'll tell, I don't ask that question anymore. How bad could it be? No, don't.
And I told you, people love it
When
you
things,
do-
of course,
Yeah,
yes.
because you
You can
can make
identify.
all of the mistakes,
That's right.
and it's like YouTube with the bloopers, it's gonna be.
Yeah,
It's the secret to success of the French chef.
that's right. And I have three free kits here for the first 3 of you who rush up here to get it, plus
But
instructions.
you have to wait until he's finished.
And instructions, if you like. So I made this out of cedar because that's a good thing to make it out of. It's weather resistant, and
Bug-proof.
the angles on this are cut at 14 degrees if you happen to have a miter saw. I'm sure, I bet if you cut it at 15 degrees, like most miter saws will do, I bet it would be fine. But this one said 14, I did 14, because the first time I make things, I try to follow instructions. So this is the floor, okay, and the floor has holes drilled in, 1/4-inch holes for drainage. I have them marked on here, but I didn't drill them. Likewise, I've drilled a lot of pilot holes in here for where the screws are going to go, which is a good idea. If you're screwing things, especially in cedar, which is a rather soft and brittle kind of wood, if you start putting a screw in it, it's going to split. So I put pilot holes in, and that you can also do yourself. I did run them through the sander, but that's not to say you won't get splinters from it. So if that's something you're interested in, it's there. So let's see if I remember how to do this now. First we attach, why don't I look at my instructions so I remember which part goes first. Yes, left side, that's what I thought. Okay, so this cedar has a smooth side and a rough side. I did it so that the rough side is on the outside, so that's how you'll know which is which. So let's see, so here's the base, and I have, okay, that's left, that's right, and I should have marked which is which. Okay, so that's, so I'm using these trim screws just because I had a million of them, but you just need a kind of a thin screw at about 1.5 inches or so. The cedar is, it's 3/4 of an inch. So you get something about 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. These are actually 1 5/8 inches. Okay, but you're not going through. In any of the places these screws are going in, it's going into the wood this way, so you're not going to come out of there the wrong way. Susan was talking about funny bird stories, and when we were talking about this presentation, I'm attaching the left side to the back just so that we have something square to work against. I used to put out peanuts for the squirrels, because for a while I was feeding the squirrels. I go through different periods. Sometimes I feed the birds, sometimes the squirrels. So I was putting out peanuts for the squirrels. And every time I put out peanuts for the squirrels, the blue jays would come and they'd steal the peanuts. So I took, and I had just been putting them out on the lawn, and I took one of these, milk boxes, like the blue cage kind of thing, turned it upside down, put it over the peanuts, so that the squirrels could kind of go in and out of the handles. It was a very close mesh box. They could go in and out. I didn't think birds would go through there, and at first they didn't. But after a couple of days, the blue jays started going in and out of there and getting the peanuts. So I built little tunnels that led up to the handles, thinking, a bird's not going to crawl into something. Which for the first couple of days they didn't, but then they did, and they learned to go through the tunnels and get the peanuts. So then I was taking it personally, and I started building, ramps and jumps and different kinds of things. And whatever I did, they beat me. So after a while, I realized, not only are the birds still defeating me, but I'm breeding a better blue jay, and it got really frustrating. I just decided to stop doing that. So let's see, where's my?
Who knows where this could have ended?
Yeah, that's right. That's
I
right.
wonder, do you have any dark squirrels in?
Oh, only dark squirrels. We used to have
Black
only.
ones?
We used to have
Are
only.
you getting black squirrels?
We do.
Yeah, I got,
The melon and,
they're a little smaller, and they look, over in my yard, there's only 2 of them, and I
Yeah.
usually have the gray ones,
Dave,
and they looked a little shell-shocked, like maybe they were
Move the
worried
corner.
about the neighbors.
I'm sorry.
move the carton away.
move the cart.
Move the carton. Okay, thank you.
Down in front.
Sorry. Yeah, we used to have only gray squirrels, and then we had gray and black. And now we have just black. They tell me it started out as an experiment in, I did something wrong there, as an experiment in, so I put it in backwards, that's why. Okay.
So many symmetries.
Some of them are tones of red or
That makes more sense.
tan.
This is what happens to me with the desk from IKEA.
Put everything together twice.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, and every time I take something apart and put it back together, I have parts left over, which is the really strange thing. Getting to be a little comical here.
It's all right then, people like it.
Okay, that's good. And remember, I'm the guy who's editing the video, so.
So it's gonna be real short, you picking up the stack and
Well,
then you showing the finishing part.
Yes, yeah. We'll be like, okay, now we'll put this in the oven.
The Julia Child
Yeah.
technique.
Oh, you know, last month, the amount of video we had was about 52 minutes, and the finished piece was 18 minutes.
It was a great video, if you guys haven't gone on to the YouTube site and seen it,
Oh, okay.
I recommend it.
I'm like the big stars, you know, I try not to watch myself after. Okay, let me see. I think I have another funny bird story. No, that was a funny squirrel story I had. You see, I'm hitting a knot, that's what it is.
Well, I have a cautionary tale.
Ah,
Is it about drills?
What?
Is it about drills?
No, it's about vultures.
Oh, okay.
oh.
Transporting ill vultures. Very important.
Ill?
So I was on a call for work when Hillary came by my, desk and handed me a note that said there's a sick vulture in the driveway. So when I got off the call, I went out, and in fact, there was a vulture in the driveway. And I had somehow brought a towel with me, thinking that would be helpful in trying to capture and do something positive with this vulture. And we have this comical scene of chasing each other around a small evergreen tree. And so I caught up with it and wrapped the towel around it, caught it, and put it in a box, and then made to take to the Raptor Trust. And then I made the significant tactical error, which is I put the box in the back seat, got in the car, and went to drive to the Raptor Trust. And the problem was that the vulture made a lot of noise and movement in that box. And because I could not see it, in my mind, that vulture was right up my back. So, the moral of this tale is, should you be in a similar situation, put that box in the passenger seat where
So
you
you
can
can keep
maintain
it-
eye contact.
And it could be more of a backseat driver than a front.
Exactly.
Or get a pet carrier.
Yeah.
Yeah, something more secure.
Stuffed vultures are huge.
Yeah, and they did tell me I was very lucky, because one of the vulture's defense mechanisms is to share its last meal with me.
Oh,
This vulture must have already done that, so I was freed of that
Yeah.
particular blessing. Unfortunately, the vulture, I think it had been hit by a car and they weren't able to save it, but at least they were able to end its suffering.
That's very kind of you to make the effort.
But, well, that's the great thing about the trust, they really are an amazing resource, and they get, they raise like 1,000 robins a year. Any bird. A huge number of volunteers who come in and help them over the
And
summer.
that's
and all
amazing
that.
too, the number of
Yeah.
people who come in and.
But they have really worked to create an endowment and training and their focus on, and they publicize whenever they have releases, when they're able to heal the birds.
Good.
And to those.
Yeah. Isn't there a place in South Jersey here that does something like you were talking about, brings in injured animals?
Yeah, there's a rehab center in South Jersey, and also up in Titusville, there's a wildlife rehab
Okay.
center, and it's very large, and they take all kinds of animals.
Well, people love this
We
page too.
can't hear it, because,
It gives me a chance to share my father's favorite joke, which is that hard work never bothered him. He could sit and watch it for hours.
yeah, right.
Yes.
On at least one occasion, we've had birds nest on the door, and then it's like you have to always go around to like a totally different door because you're so afraid that the monkeys
Yeah.
are gonna be on the nest and one of the birds die, and it just becomes a pain in the neck. And is that necessary?
I don't think that it's always necessary. I think once they've made the nest, they're really determined to take care of those babies. And I had a friend who had a robin nest literally 4 feet away from the door. And for about a week, they avoided the front door and they got tired of it. So they just started going in the front door and the
Well,
robin just went out.
Found out with Britain, they
They will
they will tell you that they do not like you next to their front door. And it doesn't matter how much you tell them, but this was my front door first.
So here it is as it comes out of the oven.
Whoa.
Not doing so good here, but, you know, I hope you get the idea.
Yeah, you're making progress.
In any case,
The idea is buy one already made.
could do that,
Yeah. What fun would that have been?
really.
So I know that, wasn't able to make the work detail, but they were putting up wood boxes, and I had heard that wood, can be parasitic also, so that they're starting to recommend these high wood boxes, so that other wood ducks won't go lay eggs.
Oh,
You know, they'll go in and they'll find like 8 layers of eggs in a wood duck.
Really? I
I read that.
Yeah.
I hadn't read that. We got kits online. We
Yeah.
couldn't really find, prefer wood. If we couldn't, like, if you get it from Home Depot, one, it was very hard to find, but, the dimensions you needed. And once you found something that might work, it was so expensive that it made much more sense just to buy the kit.
Yeah.
So we bought the kit, and it's nice looking box, but I didn't realize that.
This is a while ago, I remember reading about it. I don't know if, what the current recommendations are, but it's something to think about, look into.
I hope
Because it's not just the cuckoos and the cowbirds that will exhibit that kind of behavior, it's
the other
sometimes within the
wood
species,
duck parents.
I
It's
thought
that-
it makes sense because wood ducks are a little bit like bluebirds in that they don't have their own nests and they
they have,
try to find a cavity in the tree,
Right.
but it's very difficult, which is why people
right.
build houses. But just yesterday, I was observing, there's a pair of wood ducks, male and female, and it was clearly a male pair, and that they were just napping on a log. They didn't know I was there because wood ducks are very shy. It was at the end of a swamp, and I was just trying to take a picture. And clearly it was a mated pair. And out of the corner, this male wood duck, alone,
Mhm.
came swimming up, saw the situation, jumped up on the log, and attacked the other male. Just drove him off. He was just minding his own business, sleeping, and the second male just drove him off. And then the intruder jumped out in the water, and now he had a new girlfriend, and the two of them
Well,
went swimming off, and the other guy was the loser. So I guess it's fittest survive.
sure.
So he just drove off.
Wow.
Five duck boxes out there.
Okay.
So we have at least enough for 5 couples.
Where is it that you have them?
Oh, along the
Empty box.
empty
We
box.
just saw one we were walking on empty, on the
Yeah.
trail. And so,
Yeah, they're near the trail.
Which trail? The one near the school?
Yeah, well, that trail goes from the cemetery all through town to the
Okay,
other side.
so it kind of starts around close to the post office,
okay.
and then you walk all the way over to just walking over to the beaver, where the beavers are, in the valley.
And you can go further up to the
Yeah.
cemetery, and then the other direction it goes,
Down close to isn't Big Lake.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, that's the tributary goes into that.
Right.
Interesting, I'll have to try that.
Yeah, especially over by where the beavers dam is, by the valley bike path.
What's that?
You see ducks in that area.
Okay. It's getting hard to find.
Nicely done, sir.
Yes!
Okay.
Now,
Did anyone time
they
it?
leave a little space at the top for ventilation.
Oh, so that's intentional, okay.
Yeah, I would
I
have,
saw in your instructions that they were uneven links, and I thought, what is
Yeah.
that for? And
Yeah.
now I get it, yeah.
and there's also, there's a
Ooh,
Oh, so you
very
can
kind of a hinge built in, there's, you know, finishing nails that hold that so you can clean it out.
emergency fire
And,
exit.
and just an emergency fire exhibit, thank you.
Because you never know when, they
Or
might have
for-
been
or for-
smoking in bed
Or
or
for-
nest.
Or for
Yeah,
cancer
or-
stroke. No, it's
or-
actually,
yeah.
this one's a little loose. This one is a little bit harder to get into because you wouldn't want it real loose. So, you know,
And also you have invading birds that might lay their eggs, and
Right.
you might need to go in and just throw out
and
those
remove it,
eggs.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so remember the decal, that's important. Got that
Will
one.
we be tested on the decal?
Yeah, as long as I'm not
If you
tested.
take a box, you have to email a picture with the details.
Take a box, take instructions,
I'm gonna take a box.
take a box.
But you need a drill.
Yeah, you do need a drill. I mean,
For a driver.
technically you don't need a drill, but, you know, you need some kind of